Tēnā rā tātou. Anō te pai, te ātahua o te nohona tahitanga. Ona hoa I te roho nei, a ki roto I tēnei wharehau. I mihi ana ki te hao kāinga, mai mihi, ka tika, ki era katoa, kua tohonia I te Kāhui Whaihanga. Tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou katoa. Welcome, it's great to be here with you all. It's special to be here in our home ground, finally. Not quite finally. And we acknowledge everyone here who's going to be recognised by the NZAA. Thanks to Te Kāhui Whaihanga, thank you to Huia, and thank you to all, so many of you coming. Thank you.
Kia ora koutou. This is fantastic. It's so great to see you all, so many friends, colleagues, and this is certainly the largest audience we've had. We're halfway through our lecture tour, so we're very grateful for you spending lunchtime with us. And also this is a wonderful opportunity for us to share some thoughts about our work and what's of importance to us currently. Receiving the gold medal has been an honour and a confirmation for the two of us that what we've been working on these last couple of decades is of value to the architectural community and to the broader community. It's self-evident that projects of any scale actually require more than one voice. And in our practice, it's the differing yet complementary voices that Ewan and I have that has allowed us to create the work of the last 22 years. And for the pair of us to receive the medal reflects this interwoven nature of practice, what it takes to design and bring architecture to fruition, and that our contributions have developed with a synergy. In many ways, our interdependence is our strength. We're only the second pair of architects to receive the gold medal, and our thanks to the Institute for making this change, showing the collaborative nature of practice, that it takes many hands and many years to create successful projects which balance the issues we face today. We've titled this talk Architecture as Kaitiaki. Kaitiaki meaning custodian, guardian, caregiver. So in a metaphorical sense, we're proposing that buildings can be active participants as guardians and uplifters of people, of culture, and of the environment. Receiving the gold medal has been an opportunity for us to reflect on our mahi together. And themes that are evident through many years and projects are kaupapa Māori and strengthening development in addressing the architectural role's influence in the environmental impacts on our built environment. So that's our focus. And these themes are the ones we wish to share with you today. Having this in mind evokes the question, what is it to be a good kaitiaki in our role?
So for us, being the best kaitiaki we can has led us to the Living Building Challenge, which is something we've incorporated into every element of our two most recent buildings. The Living Building Challenge sets out the strictest standards for sustainable building in the world, and only 35 completed full Living Building Challenge projects exist globally. And once they're completed, we'll be adding 2 more to that list. And the number is so small because they're so incredibly hard to do. The LBC framework focuses on 7 areas. They call them petals, and they are place, water, energy, health and happiness, materials, equity and beauty. It is very holistic. It goes across from the subjective to the technical. And I've picked up this challenge over the last 10 years, not only creating the buildings themselves with Hugh, but also training our team in the office over there, and clients, the consultants, contractors, subcontractors, everybody involved in a project. And all involved, but also I'm becoming an advocate for sustainability and championing regenerative building more broadly. So I had a chance meeting with Hugh walking on the Wellington waterfront back in 2002, and we decided after that to join forces. Despite our different backgrounds, we've found much in common while complementing each other's skills over these years. We both wanted to build a design-led company, practice from the ground up, wanted to do fewer projects, but spend the time on them to do them really well. We wanted to do projects from the very beginning to the very end. We wanted to do really good design, but we also wanted to do really good documentation and run it well on site, managing time and cost. We wanted to gain more work by making fans from satisfied clients. And we wanted to have a small, nimble team, which we have, and care for that team as we proceeded. Hugh takes design lead, and I take sustainable design lead. And together we weave the regenerative design and capacity into the project and materiality. A major aspect of being a good kaitiaki for me has been my journey of learning te reo, deepening my understanding of te ao Māori, and especially the subtleties of kaupapa, kautahitanga, unity of purpose, ukaipautanga, you nourish the land and the land nourishes you, rangatiratanga, everybody bringing the qualities of leadership to a project, and kaitiakitanga, stewardship of the environment.
The tikanga of pepiha is when you stand in the wharanui and say who you are. A kind of impossible task, but one that reveals difference in how we may be connected. You speak of tupuna, significant landmarks and those you're connected to. He Pākehā au, he tangata tiriti au, ko Judy toko whaia, ko ia I mate I te rātou. E noho ana au I te rohi o Ngāti Raukawa, kei te taha o te awa o Otaki, I raro I a tangata maunga. He kai hoa hoa au e mahi ana, ko Susie Morrison toko wahine, ko Gabriel rara ko Mira aku Tamariki, ko Hugh Tennent toko Whenua. So I grew up in Dunedin and Wellington and Nelson in the 60s and 70s, a suburban upbringing with farming backgrounds and holidays in Central Otago. At an early age, I determined that architecture was a potential direction for me. At 12, my art teacher at intermediate, Neville Porteous, showed me a house, his house, that was designed by Ath in Kandala. A white belvedere sat atop a brick tower, and when you entered the living room, kitchen and dining space, you walked across and you're on a mezzanine, you overlooked the bathroom with the toilet, all open. This was rather shocking for my 12-year-old Dunedin sensibility. A challenging layout, but one that showed me the power of architecture. I attended Auckland Architecture School and halfway through went building for a couple of years. After graduating, I travelled in Asia for a year, pursuing a growing interest in meditative inquiry, and primarily through meditative practices, looking into the nature of mind and experience. I undertook retreats in Thailand, India, with Tibetans in the Himalaya, and travelled with my sister Joanna, a very dear friend. I worked for Structon Group in Wellington prior to the 87 crash, and then travelled in Europe and the States, pursuing architecture and more retreats. Returning to Wellington, I met Western Buddhist monks who were building a monastery in Stokes Valley, and I designed and built a new meditation hall for them and a cloister. I was the architect, the site foreman, project manager, and the QS. Not too bad at being a QS, and shaped the large timber elements on the project. In the early 90s, I started my own practice with houses, alterations, schools, wineries, and spiritually focused projects, and I gained registration. I also met Susie, my wife, and we had a family with son Gabe and daughter Mira. And with this award, the passage of this architectural life has been in mind and how it interweaves with family life. And through the many home alterations, being an overly busy father, site visits squeezed into holidays and travel, the support and interest I've received from my family has been absolutely foundational. The learnings from meditative inquiry inform my life and my design work. And over the last 2 decades, there's been the inquiry and great enjoyment of kaupapa Māori projects, the beauty and challenge of te reo Māori, and encountering tao Māori through mahitahi, through working together. There's been a learning of the history for Māori, social, economic and cultural consequences of colonisation. And that was not at all understood by me before this contact, and this learning continues. Over my life together with Susie, a psychotherapist, there's also been an inquiry into the field of human relationships, and through the span of our life together. And I'm indebted to her for the support of all these inquiries and sharing the journey. As Ewan said, in 2002 we met on the waterfront, and I discovered someone with a range of skills I hadn't strongly developed and a willingness to work together. Being alongside Ewan with his dedication into the challenges of building sustainably over the last decade particularly, confirms to me the qualities I already see, of which is sustained perseverance and resilience.
Before I start talking about the work, I'd like to talk about my family a little. I was born in Palmerston North. Dad was a left-wing house builder and built this house. And Mum was a caring nurse. And in the 1970s, Dad had no work. So he built this gable-ended L-shaped concrete block house on a bare piece of land outside Palmerston North. Mum planted a garden and we moved in, a veggie patch and an orchard. I was the oldest of 4 and the only one in my family to go to university. My eyes were open to the wider world when I went on a Lions Club-sponsored homestay trip to Japan at age 21, my first trip. So I went to Roenji Temple. This is a later photo with Nathan in it. Nice. So I went to Roenji Temple in Kyoto with my host family, which was a moving experience. It's such a sublime space. And after graduating from Victoria University, I worked at JazMad, then at Craigmoller, before working on social housing and commercial projects in Glasgow for 3 years. So my values of caring for the team come from my upbringing, and they were reinforced at this time when I was laid off in the recession, once in the UK and then once back in New Zealand. So getting back to New Zealand, times were tough, but I had an amazing opportunity again to work at Craigmoller, and this time for 4 years as project architect on Wellington Airport. And I found the small, highly efficient team environment a revelation, working hard, having fun, in flow, and achieving a lot. And it was something I wanted to build a team like that someday. Next, I want to thank Judy. And my family. Judy, as most of you know, is an architect. She's a university lecturer for 10 years, a sole practitioner, an RAB assessor for 14 years, and a past president of Te Kāhui Whaihanga. We've been together since architecture school and been married for 38 years. I wish to thank her for always being there. She's my friend, my sanity check, and my guide. I'd also like to thank Ken and Jocelyn, who are over there, Judy's parents, for all their support. And this slide is about, I found this just before we started this tour. So this is about architects and house alterations. So as you can see, we have 2 sons. One's here over there. I want to embarrass him as much as possible. So Zach is a graphic designer working in London with his partner Ash, also a graphic designer, and Nathan, just over there, is a healthcare analytics manager here in Wellington, who's just got married last month to Abby, who works at ACC. This photo is of me and our sons at Jeffrey Bawa's office in Sri Lanka while Judy was taking a group of students through Sri Lanka looking at rehousing projects. This was a year to the day after the Boxing Day tsunami. It was a huge, hectic and busy adventure, one of the many for the 4 of us. And actually our office has employed 2 of those students from that trip. Many in our office has been taught by Judy, and Julie over there is one of those. So having two sons and raising them and learning about life with them has made me think about how, as an architect, I can take better care of our planet through our work. So climate change is front of mind for most of us, hopefully. And because 39% of the world's carbon emissions are due to construction. So I want to do my best for Zach and Nathan to be able to look them in the eye and say I tried to do my best. So throughout this journey, I've found that my design is underpinned by the te whare te pawha, the four sides of the house of sustainable design: culture, care, community, and climate. These are four core values that we weave together and is something I continually return to. And I'm especially honoured by this award in its recognition of me as an architect, sustainable architect, who is helping to try and bring to the mainstream what we as an industry need to be doing for the climate and for the future.
Our most significant project recently is Ngā Mokopuna at Victoria University, Te Here Waka here in Wellington. And it represents the combination of many important learnings for us. It was there the gathering for the Gold Medal Award was held in March, which was extremely special for us to be able to have friends and families and colleagues in that whare for the occasion. And everyone had a chance to look around, and also for the marae to host us was very humbling. The kitchen worked, which is great. Ngā Mokopuna had a working title as the Living Pa, reflecting the aspiration of the project to uplift mātauranga Māori at the university and create a vibrant new home for Māori studies, a new whare kai and marae support functions in a spatial layout that was quite unique. DVC Māori Rawenia Higgins added to the marae kaupapa of the project the courageous purpose of using the Living Building Challenge for the project. The whare kai for the marae and a hononga and engagement space are on the ground floor. The teaching and learning spaces for Te Kawa Maui, Māori studies, and Awhina student support are on the second floor, and then on the top of the building there is academic spaces and the home for DVC Māori and sustainability. This is a seriously ambitious project with consultants here today who've worked on it. There's a seriously innovative mass timber structure with Dunning Thornton's consultants, very little concrete, and designed as a living lab to house all things Māori on campus. The design conception was to both reveal and support Te Tumu Here Waka, the beautiful whare whakairo of the marae, which was built in 1986, and that was the first university marae on Aotearoa. And the new schema of the new whare, lifting it up to the same level as the wharanui and the ātea, lifting the ātea, creates a really big ground plane, which is very useful for the marae, which holds a lot of very large functions, and it's very connected now. At the same time, it allows for visibility but protection from Kelvin Parade. Spatially, it's designed to create a highly connected interior, both vertically and horizontally, which supports the connected quality of Māori learning. The outcome was inscribed and uplifted by the toi of artist and educator David Hakaraia, and he was expressing in his work the whare narrative of the characteristics of Maui, the trickster.
I'd worked at Victoria University on a number of projects before joining Hugh, and we had a really good knowledge of the university, and we're the only ones in New Zealand to have completed a version 4 Living Building Challenge project. And our materials research, thank you Caitlin, on Gisborne Airport had put us in a very knowledgeable position. And we were also mad enough to put a fee on it. So doing 2 full Living Building Challenge projects at the same time, this one and the Pāreo project, was a real challenge, and at times it has really felt impossible. Both projects are now completed on site. Pāraiao has finished its 1-year performance phase, and 2 weeks ago in Portland at the Living Building Challenge conference, with my client we resolved the last item, and in the next few days we'll be applying for certification. Mokopuna is just starting its performance phase as of 1st of April, and it's got that process ahead of it. Mokopuna was a bigger project with a bigger team to bring up to speed on the LBC system. And partly due to its prolific use of timber throughout, Mokopuna's carbon footprint is 43% below a business as usual solution, saving about 940 tonnes of carbon. So with the carbon petal ticked, one of our next biggest hurdles was working out how to make the water petal, make the building water neutral. We could collect all the water and use it for drinking, which was reasonably straightforward, but how did we manage wastewater on site? So at our cost, I went on a trip to Seattle with Patrick from 335. Where are they? And we went to the Bullitt Centre, which is one of the most greenest commercial buildings in the world and the first full living LBC project in the world. Went to have a look at how the toilets worked, and we saw their composting toilets, where someone unfortunately had to turn the stuff with a pitchfork. And at some point, and Patrick and I thought, well, that wasn't going to work at Vic. So the solution in the end for us was to collect grey water from wash-hand basins and showers. So half of it goes to vacuum flush toilets, the same as you get in the plane, and the other half is evapotranspirated off plants on the building. We still had a problem though with how to deal with the amount of water coming out of the wastewater treatment plant. And the answer came when we got approval from the US-based International Living Futures Institute that oversees the Living Building Challenge to use the treated water from the wastewater plant to flush the toilets in the next door Murphy building. So this is the sort of stuff we tackle continually on an LBC project. And sometimes answers are not there when you start, but a door eventually opens on that journey. You just commit and keep searching. So once certified as meeting the Living Building Challenge requirements, Mokopuna is set to become the most sustainable commercial building in the country.
Mana Tamariki was our first kaupapa Māori project. The moimoia, the vision, was to educate Tamariki from a nursery age right through to leaving school with Te Reo Māori, within Te Reo Māori, and all under the sheltering embrace of the parents and the teachers. It was a highly committed community where each child had to have one parent who spoke Te Reo Māori, anake ki te wā katoa. So only spoke Te Reo all the time at home, at the library, at the sports field. So parental learning is also required in some cases. The design response was to employ a folding roof, like a cloak, that followed or sheltered the Tamariki on their journey from the courtyard at Kohanga through to the Kura Kaupapa Māori, the primary school, the Wharikura, the secondary school, all around the Wharikai, a courtyard, and the huimanga, the main meeting room. The public face of the Mana Tamariki to Grey Street is very transparent and under a flat-topped gable reflecting Māori structures but not wanting to be a marae.
This was a building for a small, passionate team dedicated to the restoration of Te Reo. At the time, Hugh and I could only say kia ora in all the Te Reo-only spaces, but we started to learn at this point. The clients were also influenced by Reggio Emilia, that's an Italian education movement where the environment was critical for the child's development, and looking after the whole child was paramount. The building therefore became the third educator. Mana Tamariki also reinforced our interest in sustainability and sparked the beginning of our now 22-year-long journey together, where we put greener practices at the forefront. Through Mana Tamariki, we went from being manuhiri, guests or visitors, to become part of the whānau embraced on the tangata whenua side. So much so that Penny Potu, one of the oho whakahaere, came to my father's funeral in Palmerston North and sang an impromptu waiata at his graveside. So over time, we've come to see that buildings can be educators that reflect cultural and sustainable values. Akau Tangi was our first sports project. The brief was for a community indoor sporting arena, 12 basketball courts, 12 netball courts, and 18 volleyball courts. We were invited to be part of an architectural team in a design competition. The key aspects of our sustainable focus were a naturally ventilated and naturally illuminated building. We won the competition. Soon after, we were asked to lead the architectural team, and Hugh and I walked across town weighing up the pros and cons of taking on this lead role. It was a very big step up at that time. Mana Tamariki was less than $3 million, and this was $30 million plus, and we still had to make $11 million of savings to get back onto budget. I'd just spent 4 years working nearby at Wellington Airport, so I could bring the commercial experience we needed. And as you all know, we're up against quite a lot of extreme wind and corrosion at that site. And while we were saving millions in value engineering, we spent an extra $300,000 on an aluminium roof for that building. The life cycle costing indicated we'd save $22 million over the building's 70-year lifespan.
The design for Akau Tangi, which was then the ASB, sought to be a recognisable and inviting sports building. One that was related and very grounded in its exposed harbour edge setting. And this was achieved with a building form that's curved both in plan and in the cross-section and the long section. And in this way, we also added the simple gill-like panel walls, evoking a breathable form, which is certainly what happens inside the building. The shape diminishes in height at the edges, reducing scale and cost. And the building has no corners, and so it's always receding from view, which makes it perceptibly smaller than its 1.2 hectare footprint, and thus more inviting. With SKM services now 335, and we've got Volker and Dave over there, we developed a stack effect natural ventilation with operable louver windows between the precast panels, and also at the higher level in the middle of the roof, a roof trench with operable louvers. Roof light vaults bring a diffuse light, offering a very distinct light quality to the vast interiors.
And of course, for a big project like this, and indeed on any successful project, you need a strong team around you. And getting the right mix of people to develop that capability and culture of our office has always been important. And our practice is currently 15 people, 7 are shareholders, and everyone in our team is essential to our mahi. Our highly valued long-term teammate, Māori, where's Māori? Make sure he gets called out. He is our detailing magician, and Principal Kevin Lux, I know where Kevin is, leads our large commercial projects of extraordinary good nature and capacity. Thanks, Kev. This next slide shows our past and present team members. No, it doesn't. They will shortly. Yes, this shows our past and present team members, and we thank them all. So building our tight-knit, high-performing team over the years has been really rewarding. Our longest employee has been with us for 18 years, as of 3 days ago, and our most recent 3, with an average of 5.2. We teach our younger members how to draw, how to detail. Everyone has a part to play in making sure our project is as good as it can be. Caring for people should be central to the work of any architect, whether it's the people in our office, our clients, the end users, or the public. It's all part of being a good kaitiaki. So we've managed to form a small, high-performing team who can create case studies that can represent building design, the future of building design, where environment, culture, and well-being come together. all the time and pushing some boundaries. And individually and collectively, we're on a journey with understanding our cultural history, learning te reo, waiata, and bringing kawa or ritual to the centre of our office. As part of our engagement with the Living Building Challenge, we became members of the social justice program JUST in 2017. This program tests how you govern, how you care for staff, the environment, the community, and your customers. And since then, we've also become founding signatories of the Diversity Agenda, a social justice program for New Zealand architects and engineers, and we went on to become New Zealand's first B Corp certified architectural team in 2022, and we've just applied for recertification.
For all these projects, there is a tūmanakotanga, an aspiration. And it's the intention through the design, through form making, through materiality, to bring this tūmanako to life. I think a lot about the felt human experience of our multiple senses in the buildings, including the mental and emotional qualities that the building can evoke and support. I also pursue beauty, subjective as it is, for it uplifts the human spirit. And seek to give buildings a sense of presence, a kind of embodiment, hence a certain formalism to the work. The outcome at times is not dissimilar to a wharanui, only less embellished with the storytelling of the whakaira on a wharanui. Te Kura Whenua means the precious land and is both a physical space and a symbol manifesting Tūhoi's rightful place as kaitiaki of Te Uruwera. In 2013, the Crown made a formal apology to Ngāi Tūhoi at Taniatua at the JazzMax designed Te Kura Whare, which was to be the first certified living building in Aotearoa. And a shout out to Jerome Partington, who encouraged them into that kaupapa. Sadly, Ivan Mersip, who was instrumental in that project, passed away during the build, and in 2014, Ngāi Tūhoi asked us to work with them in Te Uruwera, first project being a tribal office and a visitor centre at Lake Waikaremoana for the walk. At the time, the Te Uruwera Act was also being passed. This recognised Te Uruwera as a legal entity, granting it all the rights, powers, duties and liabilities of a legal person. The history for Tūhoi with the Crown was dark. From the outside, it's hard to appreciate the centuries-long impacts of confiscation, invasions, multiple legislations of further loss of land and disregard. The deed of settlement tells the story, and these documents are all available online, and I recommend them for any architects working with iwi. And also, they should be taught in schools. The new whare would be the first by Tūhoi in Te Uruwera since the establishment of the National Park in 1954, a process in which Tūhoi had no say, causing further alienation. The design development grew from a concept plan created by Ivan and JazzMax before he passed, and Tūhoi wanted to take the learnings, the LBC learnings from the Taniatua project, but not pursue certification on this one. Auntie Lorna, the local tribal elder at Waikaremoana, wanted a soft, non-commercial building. And we designed a whare with external precast structure, which was inspired by the fractured sandstone slabs at nearby Oniputo Bay, which were created in a landslide 2,200 years ago and which created the lake. These slabs on the building ends signify Tūhoi standing again at Waikaremoana, clad in burnt timber, symbolising their ahika, the burning fires, expressing land rights and mana whenua authority. Between these po, the roof edge is draped, a reference to the Māori-owned lake bed and the heavy rainfall. Internally, the space is timbered, warmed by a log burner, with visitors not encountering a normal dock office with things to buy, rather a whare wānanga, a place of engagement with the Tūhoe people that work in the office there, who come out and meet and talk about Tūhoe's guardianship of Te Aroera, the living person that cannot be owned but only cared for.
It was Ngāi Tūhoe who introduced us to the Living Building Challenge on this project, and has now taken over my life, so much so that Judy describes it as a third person in our marriage. So, why do this? There are three key reasons. Number one, the built environment is responsible for 39% of global greenhouse gas emissions. 28% is operational, in the operation and maintenance of a building through its lifespan. And 11% is the embodied carbon, that is the stuff in the building. This is just something as architects we just can't ignore. And the second, the UN has predicted that by that the world requires 230 billion square metres of refurbished and new construction space by 2060. And that's the equivalent of building the area of New York City every 34 days for the next 35 years. And third, by 2050, over 100 countries, including New Zealand, have committed to be carbon neutral. Net zero emissions cannot be solved by any one country. It's going to take many countries to make that step up, to make that change. And of course, there's more to it than carbon or monetary cost. It's biodiversity loss, material consumption, waste cycles. Again, trying to be a good kaitiaki. So that's the why, but the how. That's where the Living Building Challenge comes in, and I'll talk more about that shortly.
You keep going.
Oh, I keep going. Tamariki, Gisborne Airport, is an important project for us, and it's my second airport project. So the challenge with an airport is to ensure that it remains operating while you're building or rebuilding, and it has to still stay on that small slither of land between the planes and the cars. It's essentially a simple transition from the land to the air, and we wanted to tell the story of the region and of that journey. This was also our first testing ground for carbon. Brains' LCA Quick software gave us some numbers for the first time. Replacing a couple of steel portals and all the steel roof purlins saved us 38 tonnes of carbon. So we had some numbers, but we had little idea of what they meant relative to the whole building's carbon. That came a bit later with our e-tool LCA, but it was a time of rapid learning. So we worked closely with Rongo Whakata. We introduced a tahuhu, or a ridge board, and they introduced us to Tā Derek Ladelli, who designed the Manaia figure representing a spiritual guardian linking the physical and the spiritual worlds. And makers of architecture, CNC cut that into the tahuhu for us. Tio Pera Rana carved the pare over the entry waharoa to both land and air sides. So the client had heard about our Waikaremoana project and the Living Building Challenge, and I offered to do all the LBC materials research for free. And this amounted to about $70,000 worth of time. And we took LBC right through to tender, but at that time it was value engineered out. And so it was only 3 to 4% of the price. Our efforts weren't wasted because it was proved instrumental in us getting one of our next Living Building Challenge projects.
Regional terminals need to be simple. The design played with the shed form by lowering the long gutted edges on the land side, car park side, forming a sense of shelter, or maihi, and raising them on the air side, evoking more of a waka, in this case a waka rerirangi, a flying vessel. Twisted columns on the landside veranda speak to local horticulture and aviation, and also point to Kuria Paua, young Nick's head. Also referenced with rammed earth panels of local material. The adorned tahuhu was conceived as a broad canopy, being a presence for the entire space. The outcome for the region is a gateway infused with mana whenua toi and kōrero, much enjoyed by visitors and locals alike, such that it is a significant cultural room in Gisborne. and at times used for purposes other than terminal, such as an education space. They've got gaps between the flights up there. Terminals which speak of the unique culture of place are uplifting for the culture and the visitor alike. And in this regard, it's good to see Gandalf and the Eagles finally come down at Wellington Airport. For Te Ara Tawhaki, the Paki Waitara, or the legend of Tawhaki climbing to the heavens to gain ngā kete or mātauranga, the sacred baskets of knowledge, became the design narrative to generate the architecture for this project for Te Wānanga o Raukawa in Otaki, comprising a lecture theatre, a student hub and a wharepukapuka, a library. These purposes align strongly with the legend's content of the kete. The building forms are economic, clad in colour steel and adorned with a patterned screen reflecting the different knowledge baskets worked through with knowledge holders at the wānanga. The central form is an entry lobby to the lecture theatre and a display case for a beautiful set of carvings, a carved maho, the porch carvings, which both protects the carvings and avoids evoking a new marae, because the wānanga is not a marae. The lecture theatre is a power room for iwi of the coast, with paired carvings representing every marae from Porirua to bulls.
So this was our first lecture theatre for the wānanga, and we'd done several at Victoria University. So we're able to bring some experience to the table. At the RFP interview, I talked at the end about the Living Building Challenge, almost as an afterthought, and they were very interested in that kaupapa, and we were subsequently selected for the project. We did review all materials for the red list, which is a list of 914 chemicals to avoid in construction. But it was very early in our LBC experience, and the client did not pursue it further on this project.
So we had undertaken 3 projects with the wānanga, each one a step to transforming the campus from having a centralised car park and a lot of existing and recycled buildings to a place of connectedness with nature, a distinctly Māori place with expression in each new whare, and an emphasis on ngā tangata, the people. For this project, Pāreo, the ground plane was primary. It was a broad area. It was a floodplain, and there was a lot of building required, so we had to lift the buildings up. We conceived a 10-metre wide building module of elevated gable structures extending eaves which sheltered peripheral decks so you could get into the buildings in different ways. And we placed a new car parking on the periphery of the site. And working closely with Rayton Associates, we arranged the whare on a new pedestrian access through a new administration building which connected across to our first project, Ngā Purapura, and reordered the campus heart. Providing for the requirements of stormwater attenuation and LBC, the outcomes of the planting, the swales, the rain gardens, an outdoor kitchen that rolls up behind a roller door, and the modest but high-performing buildings have created a settled and natural campus.
I introduced the wānanga fully to the Living Building Challenge on this project, and they cautiously agreed to proceed if it didn't cost any more. So there's a bit of a backstory, which I won't go into. Then the COVID pandemic kicked off shortly after that. And I remember a critical meeting with Te Mana Whakahare, the leadership group. I was the PM and the architect, and stripped out all the LBC costs to drive the project down to budget. Despite doing my best, couldn't get it down to the right level. So price escalation at that time was just too high, as many of you would know. The OHO, though, told me no, not to remove it. Commitment to sustainability was their kaupapa. And even in the face of significant cost increases, we were to include all the LBC aspects. So it was profoundly moving to experience that sort of vision. Here was a values-based organisation following through on their kaupapa and thinking intergenerationally as kaitiaki. So we had the why before. This is about the how to make change for climate. And as I said earlier, LBC is the highest rating system of sustainability for buildings in the world. So rather than extracting from the environment, living buildings actively return and regenerate resources. They enhance the vitality of the ecosystem and the society they are sited within. It's a system, as I've said, broken into these petals. So, place. For Pārāua, we completed an ecological restoration of the site over the project timeline, as well as targeting the longer term. We also analysed the site's pre-development hydrology to replicate its state before human habitation. That's how much water fell on the ground, how much soaked in, and how much flowed off, as shown in these calculations of before and after. 10% of the site is allocated to food production, which includes rongoa of plants for healthy remedies and fruit trees. Energy. We're required to generate 105% of the energy needs on site, but we've actually achieved 228% over the last year. We've reduced embodied carbon by 48% from modules A to D, more than the required 20%. Water. All water is collected on site. All grey water and black water are dealt with on site. We have no sewer or stormwater connection. Health and happiness. This requires natural ventilation and views to all spaces and stringent air quality testing. And we actually failed one of the 28 different tests, but have subsequently fixed that. Materials. Where's Caitlin? So this slide is of Caitlin. So this is about 3 or 4 of the A0 sheets, and the tracking table for Pārāua is 50 A0 sheets long. So every material used in the buildings has been researched for the red list. That was the list of chemicals that are not allowed. The next slide says 777, which it was when we started the project, but it's now 914. Every internal product was researched for globally highest standards of VOC emissions to ensure the best indoor air quality. We recorded the cost and distance from point of manufacture of all materials, and we've achieved these percentages. And this next slide from the opening shows in the bottom left the area for waste sorting area for the client has created. We created for the project, but it's now been adopted as their business as usual approach to waste. LBC waste diversion requires a minimum of 90% diverted from landfill, and we actually achieved 99.7%. Only 3.8 tonnes went to landfill. Equity. 2 team members became members of Just. Ourselves, we've just redone it in the last month, and Dunning Thornton got it last week. Beauty. The team completed 2 biophilic workshops and created and monitored this biophilic plan through the duration of the project. And lastly, the building now complete displays and educates what it does, how it does it, with signage, open days and a website. And yes, you might be thinking, it can cost more. But it does depend on what you do on your particular project. They're all quite different in terms of LBC impacts. For example, of course, if you put photovoltaics on the roof or collect your rainwater in tanks, that's obviously going to cost more, but both these projects, after that initial capital cost, have no more power or water bills. The capital cost increase on the projects we've shown varies from 3% on one to 10 to 15% plus on some others.
Te Whare Honongay, the house that connects, binds, tells the story of Ngāti Te Whiti Hapu and its interaction with St Mary's, where British forces were garrisoned during the Taranaki Wars in the 1860s. Māori had most of their land confiscated for resisting sale and fighting to retain their land with devastating effect. And this recent project we undertook for the Anglican Cathedral of Ngā Motu, where St Mary's Church is the cathedral, had the kaupapa of reconciliation between the church and Ngāti Te Whiti mana whenua there, and the uplifting of mana whenua on the entire site. The project reordered the site, moving the large vicarage forward and placing front and centre an overtly contemporary Māori building beside New Zealand's oldest stone church, much to the consternation of some of the community. The whare is a parallelogram in plan, reflecting the indigenous pathways from Pukaka Hill to Paritutu Rocks in the coast. It's thus differentiated from the colonial grid. The structure and patterning is designed to reflect the two peoples and this intention of reconciliation. The walls are a diagrid of glulam and LVL, both pine, but differently made. The geometry is informed by a tāniku weaving pattern called waharua kōpito, a paired vertical diamonds expressing the change that occurs when people and events cross. Diamond-shaped aluminium screens reference this tāniku pattern, and they hold a simple whetū or star perforations designed by leading Te Atiawa artist Rangi Kipper, who work with us on this project. The roof is a reciprocal structure of primary glulam beams and secondary LVL members, where every member is interdependent and no member spans from side to side. It's quite quizzical. And this reflected again the kaupapa of the project to connect and uplift Ngāti Te Whiti on the site and interdependence. The layered exterior facade has the appearance of a woven object, while the interior is conceived as a contemplative space and a place for wānanga, with openings located to enable visual connection to historical features on the site, brought alive during kōrero, during wānanga. All of this supported by kōwhaiwhai panels by rangi and audiovisual storytelling. The most satisfying thing about this project is its strong use by Ngāti Te Whiti and many other groups gathering to undertake the challenging work of reconciliation, of understanding the past, and of education. As Rangi said to me in conversation while we were working on this, reconciliation is not all sweetness and light. In fact, it's hard work, for you have to encounter the mamai, the pain that exists there in the present.
So as you've heard, our Te Ao Māori projects and the Living Building Challenge have profoundly affected the way we work. There's a wonderful symbiosis between the kaupapa of kaitiakitanga, stewardship of the environment, and the framework of the Living Building Challenge. So our Māori clients have either led this or have adopted the Living Building Challenge for their projects. And the act of guardianship over the environment is a value that's lived and it's not given up when the going gets challenging. Somebody recently called what we're doing radical sustainability, and that's exactly what it is. But what we want is sustainable building design to become mainstream, rather than something at the fringes. It's incredibly inspiring to be at the forefront of this movement. It's heartening to see how excited people get over it, and to be able to share our knowledge and bring others along on this journey. Now, for your architects in the room, I'd like you to pick something from what we've done in these projects. It doesn't have to be big, but try and do it on one of your next projects, because we all have a part to play, and it can only be done by everyone doing their part of being a good kaitiaki.
So it's been a pleasure to share with you just some of our mahi. I'm selected as a thread of projects with Tau Māori and kaitiakitanga. We have many other project types and wonderful clients and colleagues, but all of these projects are focused on the collective, which is also something required from us as designers, to serve the kaupapa, to serve the purpose. And buildings, they exist for a long time, at best supporting and sheltering. And for me, the intent is often to also have them settle us, to settle our nervous system. And in this way, we naturally connect with each other, with ourselves, and with the world for which we are kaitiaki. Finally, to our crew in the office, to our friends and family here, and to all of you for spending this time with us on ngā mihi ki a koutou. Just to finish, a whakatauki, toitu te marae a tānei, toitu te marae a Tangaroa, toitu te tangata. If the domain of Tānei, the forest, is healthy, and the domain of Tangaroa, the oceans, is healthy, then the people will thrive. O ngā mihi, kia ora.
Yeah, you sit there. You don't know yet which do we go now?
Well, wholehearted ngā mihi nui to both Hugh and Ewan for a truly inspiring talk. A reminder to everyone that you can send your questions to Hugh and Ewan via Slido using the hashtag Aon. And your questions will be going straight to their phones, and they'll do their best to answer as many questions as they can in the time we have. While we're waiting for those to fly in, I would like to say that the steady evolution of your work over the years has been really compelling. Ewan, you've talked in the past about how you've used your own projects to set baselines and compete against when it comes to carbon targets, which is really inspiring. But I also really appreciate how each project has amassed more and more empathy. I'm particularly in admiration of how this sort of practice has led to a building, or a couple of buildings now, which are responsive to the hydrology. And in Wellington here, responsive to the hydrology of a very significant awa, the Kumutoto stream. So it's fantastic to see, and I look forward to seeing what's next. So now to Q&A.
We didn't talk about it, but Robin's not here, but Paul is. And then the point you make about the awa, we actually daylit the headwaters of the Kumutoto stream up at Mokopuna. So there's a section of about 20 metres that's been daylit, and we've created a well and drained the Aotearoa. So there's a nice additional story. It's actually going beyond LBC, but it came from Robin Skinner, who showed me a book really early on, and then the headwaters of the Kumutoto stream's right at the Aotearoa of the Wharenui. All right. Which questions do you like, Hugh? I'm not sure about that first one. Every marriage has its friction. So Shrab, the successful work with it. How do you work with that in your professional marriage? You can answer that.
Thanks, thank you. We have our frictions. We're very, very different characters, but actually we just keep thinking about each other as people, and the difference that we have is just the way people are. And also that it's quite extraordinary what we have been able to do because we've got complementary skills rather than exactly the same set of skills. And so it's a mutual respect and keeping an eye on the bigger picture.
Yeah.
Do you want to add anything to that?
Oh, I don't know. No, it is about that keeping going, perseverance, and you get tired if you do it all the time, so that you're handing it backwards and forwards as well. But it is like a marriage with all those challenges that you have. But it is nice having that overarching long-term goal. And the thing that's really invigorated me in the last years is actually how can we make this, how can we do this living building challenge thing, which felt super crazy at certain points. So it's something beyond you. It's that kotahitanga. You're all on a journey to do something together. That's a really good thing. All right. What recommendations do you have for adapting LBC principles for smaller or residential?
You've got an answer for that.
I do. I'll just find that. We got these questions last time and I didn't have it.
Good question.
So one of the questions was, how can we apply this to a small practice? So I wrote down 7 things. So just quickly, for a small practice, start small with materials and carbon. Try something extra on every project. Doesn't have to be big, just start. Don't push clients into this. Don't shame anybody. Take them on your journey and take them as far as you think they can go and push them just a little bit beyond where they can go. Less steel, aluminium and concrete. Decarbonise, avoid gas, electrify everything. Do an LCA if you haven't done one. Start learning, go to brands and get the LCA quick. Free download, try it, ring up, ask us. Ask every supplier for an EPD, material, chemical, VOC, carbon data, and tell them it affects your decision making. They're going to miss out on the next job if you don't give it to, they don't give it to you. And then start asking for waste diversion, recycling, take-back schemes.
Yeah, you work on many different typologies. How do you get into new typologies? So one thing that we've learned is that it's hard to get into new typologies because the people that are the gatekeepers, often all they're interested in is knowing that you've already done a whole lot of those type of things. And so sometimes it's by hook or by crook or by luck. But also it's important to believe that as architects, it's all about principles and being able to synthesize a lot of things. And it doesn't, you can always resource yourself with people that do know things when you get into different typologies. But one thing that we do know is that types of work beget more of that kind of work. So if you want to do a lot of prisons or something, then start doing a prison. But if you want to do, one thing we've found with Tau Māori projects is the Kumravine, the wonderful kind of connectedness in that community. And so we've been fortunate in that regard. And Kevin here is this amazing architect who has the confidence of a lot of our commercial clients, and so it's a really lovely, good work stream for our office. And anything to add?
Nope. No. How has LEC changed since your first introduction to it? Version 2 we didn't work on, but it was a whole lot simpler. Between version 2 and 3, the chemical list went hugely big. It continues to evolve. Version 3 to 3.1, we're on now on 4. It gets harder, but there's just more to do. So it's just more work you've got to focus on. Mr. Bevan, in tough times, being experienced now, is sustainable architectural practice economically sustainable? Good question, sir. My view, turn that around, is because all the things that you have day to day get in the way of doing more sustainable practice as an add-on. I think we have to actually make it that sustainable practice is just something that we do, and it's part of what we do, and some things you can get into a job and some things you can't, so you just make it part of your whole existence, not a bolt-on. And we have to get to carbon neutrality by 2050, so it's not optional.
Through architecture, what emotion do you both wish to convey and wish for people to experience through your work? Do you want to answer that?
No.
Okay.
What was the question?
Through your architecture, what emotion do you both wish to convey and wish for people to experience?
Hope. I don't know.
So I wish to convey some wonder, some uplift of spirit through finding something, some delight, some beauty does that. And also there's been a bit of an emphasis, and we've talked about in the talk of whakatau, of settling things, because when you're settled, you're less anxious and you're more available for all of your humanity to come through, both with yourself and with each other. And so that is quite a big kaupapa in the design work. And Ewan talked about the Pāreo campus having that kind of quality.
Settledness.
Yeah. So, before people would move around from building to building across a car park, now they move across through a natural environment with sort of wetlands, and there were always trees there, but now the trees are really prominent and uplifted. And so it really has an effect. And people, actually what the Whaihanga has said, that actually people feel more connected to each other. So that's just by having that quality.
The only thing I would say would be the aspiration of pushing towards, pushing to doing more even when you, like I said at some point, it does feel like it's impossible, or it does feel like there aren't solutions, but we've got to all work together to get solutions. So I like the aspirational pushing. There's a question here, what was the health issue you had to solve in the Parao project? So health and happiness is not actually about fixing health, it's about creating, I suppose it is, it's about creating really healthy environments. So you've got very low VOCs, you've got really good materials, you've got natural ventilation, and you've got really low levels of any particulates in the air. So it's about increasing health and well-being by being in a really healthy environment. So you have to have certain distances that you walk on so that when your shoes come into the building, you're taking all the particulates off your feet. The 28 different, 20 different VOCs and 8 different particulate tests are quite hard. Like even CO2, getting it down to 600 parts per million when 425 is outside, is actually quite hard when you've got a room with a couple of people in it. So that's a pretty basic one, but then you've got radon, and we failed on the craziest of things of ozone. So in a rural community, 4,000 people next to some farms beside the sea, we failed ozone. At Wellington, I hired a thing to measure it, and at the end of the motorway was lower than the air in Otaki. So it was something I didn't want to learn about, but we learned about it, and we put some activated carbon filters in and dropped their ozone levels. So you learn a lot.
We run out of time, but just want to thank you for your questions and for coming. Yeah.
Thank you.
Ngā mihi.
Well, thank you again, Hugh and Ewan, for your generosity and thoughtfulness, and thank you to our audience for all your questions. Now, as is tradition, we have a limited number of books published by the Institute showcasing a selection of Tennent Brown's work, which Hugh and Ewan will be doing some signings of. For those of you joining the local awards this evening, please return to the same location at 5:30 for drinks and canapes, followed by the formalities and a seated dinner. Please have your QR codes ready. For everyone else, thank you for being here today. I hope you've enjoyed today's gold medal lecture. Let's show our appreciation one more time.